over 55 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by the Georgia Farm Bureau in association with Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College.
Good morning and welcome to the all-new edition of the Farm Monitor. Jennifer Parson holding things down this week while Ray's away from the desk. As always, we've got a jam-packed show looking at the issues that could have a major impact on the ag industry. Case in point, relief at last for America's farmers. We'll break down the massive new spending bill some say is a major win for Georgia agriculture. Also on the show, from cotton to peanuts, why shifting acres has growers concerned and how this year's crops are shaping up in Georgia. And later, a routine task on his farm turned into a life-threatening emergency for Terry England. Now the former state representative is opening up about the accident and his determined road to recovery. All this and so much more starting right now on the Farm Monitor. While President Trump's newly enacted spending bill is definitely big, the million-dollar question is just how beautiful will it be for Georgia farmers? Damon Jones breaks down some of the changes that have been made and how they should benefit the agricultural industry for years to come.
After years of financial uncertainty, farmers might finally have a bit of clarity thanks to the new 870-page spending bill that was recently signed into law. Now, while it might have been a long time coming, it does appear to be a piece of legislation that was well worth the wait for producers around the country.
The Big Beautiful Bill is going to be a boon for agriculture in Georgia and actually the entire U.S. It's essentially a replacement for the Farm Bill. You know, we had been wanting a Farm Bill for the past 2 years, and I think most farm advocacy groups are going to consider this their Farm Bill.
With input costs being at record highs and commodity prices struggling to keep pace, creating a larger safety net was imperative to keeping the agricultural industry running strong. And it's why some of the changes made to crop insurance programs will be a welcome sight for farmers moving forward.
What was done there was primarily the reference prices increased. Those increased reference prices were in line with what we saw from a proposed Farm Bill in the House in 2024. They seem to be pretty favorable for the commodities that we grow here in Georgia, specifically cotton and peanuts. If you enroll in ARC, you'll now be able to purchase the supplemental coverage option under crop insurance. Previously, you were not able to do that, and the guaranteed revenue under ARC has also increased.
The bill also raises premium subsidy rates to 65% for enhanced coverage options and 80% for supplemental coverage options, making these programs much more affordable and accessible. It also lays the groundwork for a new policy that could benefit one of Georgia's top industries.
So the subsidy rates on premiums, the premium subsidy rates have increased. So all else equal, farmers should be paying less for their crop insurance going forward. And there was also a call to develop an insurance policy for contracted poultry production. And poultry is one area where we haven't seen a lot of use of federal crop insurance in the past.
Passing on family farms to the next generation has also become easier, with the inheritance tax once again being raised in order to encourage young people to make their return back to rural communities.
There were also some changes made on the tax side. I think principally what would be beneficial to farmers are changes made to the estate tax exemptions. The amounts that can be exempted have been increased to $15 million a person or $30 million for a couple.
Reporting from Athens, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Farmers and producers from across the state recently attended the Midville Field Day at the Southeast Research and Education Center to get an update on this year's crop, as well as hear about new techniques and varieties to improve their yields. John Holcomb was there and spoke with experts about how the 2025 season is going so far.
As always, there was plenty for producers to hear and see at this year's Midville Field Day, a beneficial time for growers to hear from experts regarding any and everything related to crop production, including updates on this year's crop. According to Extension cotton agronomist Camp Hand, this year's cotton crop is looking good despite some challenges early on.
Today's August 6th. The last 2 days we've gotten rain across the state, which was much needed. We were kind of getting to a point where it was getting a little iffy in terms of what the crop was doing. It was getting really dry out there, and so we've gotten rain in the last couple days that I think is going to help us out a lot in terms of helping out with irrigation, kind of catching up on some of that. And our dryland crop is going to be really, really good. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of fruit shed and things like that associated with overcast weather. But, I mean, overall, I think we've still got really good potential in our crop.
According to Hand, however, though producers are growing a good crop, their return isn't expected to be great, as the price of cotton is currently under 70 cents per pound, which has caused many producers to opt out of growing it this year, turning to just about the only option they have, peanuts, but says that shift is concerning.
Of course, the reduction in cotton acres affects infrastructure. I mean, it affects gins, it affects warehouses, it affects people that have equipment, and some people have kind of gotten out of the cotton business. And I mean, the reason that Georgia agriculture has been so successful, especially with our major row crops, is because cotton and peanuts just work. They just work together. And we can't have one without the other. We can't rely or gamble on dryland corn every year. We got to do what we can to keep everybody in business, but we got to survive 2025.
Thankfully for those peanut producers, that crop is doing well this year. That's according to Extension peanut agronomist Scott Mumford.
This year we had a more typical planting season. Had a lot of moisture for the most part in April and going into May. The temperatures were good, and we had a little blip a little bit in May where we had some dry weather and had to wait for some rain. But for the most part, we got a majority of our crop planted on time. The crop is looking very well across most of the state.
However, this year's crop hasn't been free from challenges. As Mumford says, the heat wave that came through late July into August put stress on the plants during a crucial blooming period, but says from what he's seen, the damage seems minimal.
Now, some of the irrigated crops struggle too because we were 95+ degree temps with no rainfall, and some of these pivots you just can't keep up at that point. And because one of those reasons we were in the blooming process and kind of in peak blooming, and it needs a lot of water at that point, or at least more water than it did previous to that. And so we did go through a stress period, but I think it was early enough that I don't think it's going to hurt us right now, or at least at this point we don't seem to be as hurt as we could be.
Reporting in Midville for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Still ahead, a candid look at Terry England's long road back after a devastating farm accident. What happened that day and what's keeping the former state representative moving forward. For years, Terry England has been a steady presence under the Gold Dome, a respected voice shaped by deep agricultural roots and a commitment to service. But earlier this year, that voice was tested in an entirely new way. A routine day on his farm ended in a near-fatal accident, one that would push him into the fight of his life. As our Ray DeLesio shows us, what followed was a journey not marked by titles or recognition, but by quiet resilience, unwavering faith, and the strength of an entire community.
They say the soil doesn't forget the hands that tend to it. That here, in the stillness of morning and the rhythm of the fields, a person can find purpose. For Terry England, it's always been that simple. A farmer, a lawmaker, a public servant who walked the halls of the Georgia Capitol for nearly 2 decades, chairing the House Appropriations Committee, then stepping into the role of Chief of Staff.
You know, you wind up as you serve, you have things that you never had a dream when you started serving that would become important to you. Sure. And I was very fortunate that there were a lot of things that became important to me, and there were a lot of things that I was able to have a hand in helping with.
Yeah, and of course, you were a farmer before you became a politician. What does the farm mean to you personally? I'm not just talking about the work aspect of it, Terry. What does the farm really just overall mean to you?
Well, it's just a great place to live. I mean, you know, and where we're at today in northwestern Barrow County is not nearly as rural as it was 25 years ago, but still, you still know your neighbors. When you have something happen and something like my accident happened, the two first people there at the accident was my dad and my next door neighbor.
February 8th, 2025. It was supposed to be just another day, like countless mornings before it. But Terry's relentless work ethic, his deep love for the outdoors, collided with something no one saw coming. A routine task, a familiar piece of heavy machinery, and in the blink of an eye, everything changed. A freak accident, violent and unforgiving, left Terry fighting for his life with a devastating spinal cord injury that would alter his world forever.
If you cut everything else out of this interview, the one thing that I want you to make sure is in the interview, if you're on a piece of equipment that's got a seatbelt, there's a reason that seatbelt is on there. Buckle it with yourself in it, because it's there for a reason. One of my favorite things was to get on my skid steer and do work, clean up, and we had pine beetles hit us. And so we had a lot of trees that we'd laid down on the ground, and some of them still were good saw logs. So I was out there, had the forks on the front of the skid steer, moving them just from one stack to another stack. And you know, what happened with me, the load, I raised up, the load caused the machine to tip forward a little bit. I went to let it down, and as anybody that's run a skid steer knows, they go into this little bucking routine, and it was throwing me against the steel roof of the machine. I'd bounce back, hit the seat, bounce back, hit my head on the roof again. Did it 4 or 5 different times, and when the machine finally stopped, I'm sitting there, I can't feel my hands, can't move my hands, can't move my feet, my legs. When I woke up, I realized I've got to make myself breathe because I'm not breathing. So I was able, thankfully, my core still had enough use that I could make myself breathe.
Airlifted to Northeast Georgia Medical Center, Terry's fight began even before he opened his eyes. First, there was emergency surgery, then silence, but not surrender. In time, he was transferred to Atlanta's world-renowned Shepherd Center, a place where possibility is rehabbed just as much as the patient. For 2.5 months, Terry lived that mission. He worked, he struggled, he refused to yield. And beside him, 2 therapists, Kelsey Lee and Christopher Reddy, refusing to let him fall. They weren't just rebuilding a body, they were rebuilding a belief that this wasn't how his story would end. Then came May 9th, a quiet Thursday just after 10 a.m. No headlines, no parade, but a moment that needed neither. Terry England, once told he might never walk again, stepped through the doors of the Shepherd Center to return home. No walker, no wheelchair, just 2 feet and one unshakable will.
Again, we don't know why we were there, but we know that we were there for a reason. And, you know, is part of the reason what we're sitting here talking about today is what we experienced, and the reason that in these machines that have a seatbelt, put the seatbelt on.
So right now I'm standing where it all happened. This spot right here, where a simple day's work turned into something unimaginable. A place Terry England has walked across thousands of times until the one time that nearly cost him everything. And yet,
This location doesn't trigger fear or bad images, it brings clarity. Because what Terry carries now isn't just the memory of the accident, but a new perspective. One rooted in faith, lifted by family, and strengthened by the hands of neighbors, fellow farmers, and folks who know what it means to show up when it matters most.
Knowing that our Farm Bureau family that we had, made years ago, 30 plus years ago when we were on the Young Farmer Committee, knowing that the Ag Teacher Network, that the 4-H Extension Agent Network, all of those folks put out the word that night or the morning after when they heard about the accident, and all of a sudden there are people everywhere praying for you. You don't come through those kind of things and not be a changed person and not have a little bit better outlook on life, especially when you're able to walk out and you know that it's because miracles happened and because prayers worked.
And I would not be doing my job if I didn't bring up one of your biggest supporters. It's not a former constituent, not a fellow public figure. It's your wife, Cindy, your high school sweetheart. Could any of this been possible without her?
No, absolutely not. She was there all the time. During the whole 3+ months that we were not home, she was home one day, and that was while we were still in Gainesville. She needed to come home and get some clothes, and then she was back at Gainesville.
Day by day, he's reclaiming movement, rebuilding strength. But maybe more than anything, Terry England is rediscovering the meaning in the smallest of victories. You see, a farmer doesn't quit when the crop fails. He replants, waters, and waits. Terry England is doing the same with a spirit that refuses to yield.
Again, that was Ray D'Alessio with that report. While England continues his recovery and therapy, he says his focus now is on helping others, especially young farmers, understand just how quickly life can change and the importance of respecting the risks that come with working the land. When we come back, Extension Specialist Paul Pugliese breaks down a common issue with ornamental cherry trees and shares tips on how to manage it.
Price lookup stickers, or PLUs, that you find in the grocery store on your produce. Many people complain about these stickers. The current challenge with PLUs is that the sticker and the adhesive are both petroleum-based. France, New Zealand, many other countries are pushing with policy toward banning the import of produce from the U.S. with those stickers. The USDA has been tasked to develop a biodegradable adhesive using biopolymer that is home compostable and commercially compostable, and we're doing that with our industry partner.
We have made over 250 formulations of bio-based ingredients into an adhesive that we hope will work for the home compostable stickers. We also are varying the different methods that we use to apply that adhesive to the films, and then also to dry and cure them, so that we're mimicking what it will be like when our partners take this out and manufacture them and create these stickers that will go on the fruits and vegetables. It's a very challenging project because as you think about when these stickers might be used out in the field, the fruits and vegetables may be near freezing, or it may be well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit when they're trying to be applied. So it needs to work over all these conditions. The stickers also need to work over a variety of different surfaces. You can imagine that a kiwi is quite different than an apple, and quite different than a pear, or quite different from another fruit that may be coated with a wax to help protect its appearance. And it's really important that you get just the right amount of adhesive on, You want the sticker to be able to survive during packing and transport and to home, but when you're going to eat the fruit, you want to be able to easily pull off that sticker and have all the adhesive stay with it and not stay on the skin of the fruit and vegetable. In making these PLU sticker adhesives, we're helping to protect the exports for farmers who send crops to countries like New Zealand and France. And this protects about $68 million worth of exports to those countries, and that's just for grapefruit and sweet potatoes alone.
The goal is to take this to pilot scale trial and eventually for our commercial partner to produce the adhesive at a commercial scale, and this would be an adhesive that you would see on your produce in your local grocery store.
Hi, I'm Paul Pugliese with the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. Today I'm looking at a tree that we get a lot of calls about here in Georgia. This is an ornamental flowering cherry tree. There's a lot of different types of ornamental flowering cherries. A lot of these are Japanese type cherries that are planted in landscapes. One of the more popular ones is Yoshino cherry, and there's a lot of other varieties that are used for their flowering. Unfortunately, a lot of these types of cherries get a leaf spot disease in the summertime. And this disease can actually start out with little bitty spots on the leaves. You get little brown spots that start out, and then as the disease progresses, these spots, interestingly enough, will actually start to fall out of the holes. And so it actually looks like insect damage, where an insect may have chewed on the leaf and left a hole in it. But in this case, it is actually caused by a combination of a fungus and a bacteria. Again, these are fungal diseases and bacterial diseases that infect the leaves. And the infection actually starts in the early spring. It starts very, very early, usually associated with warm, wet weather, like we had this spring this year. We see that a lot in Georgia, and so this disease is very common throughout our state. This particular disease, again, is not something that will kill a tree. It looks bad and looks worse than what it really is, but a lot of people think their trees are actually dying. But most trees that are otherwise pretty healthy can tolerate this disease fairly well. If you were to treat a tree, I would try to focus more on younger trees, trees that are maybe used as specimens close to your house or your landscape that are a little bit smaller. And if you did want to treat, there are some fungicides that you could put out, but you have to put it out before the holes and the spots become apparent. Because once the holes are there, they're going to stay on that leaf for the rest of the summer. So spraying doesn't do you any good at this point. So again, it's not the disease, the leaf spot disease so much that's the problem. It's sort of the secondary effect of it being defoliated and that tree opened up and being stressed during the middle of the summer. So again, we don't really recommend spraying for this on larger trees, but again, if it's a specimen tree or a tree that you really wanted to try to, a young tree, trying to give it a head start, increase the longevity of that tree, maybe you would spray it. But the goal really should be to focus on reducing other stresses in that tree. So again, this is a common problem in Georgia. If you have any other questions related to your trees, feel free to reach out to your local county extension office by calling 1-800-ASK-UGA-1 or go to our website at ugaextension.com and continue to follow us on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Big thanks to Paul for lending his expertise. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye, at least for the time being. For everyone here at the show, I'm Jennifer Parson. Thanks for watching the Farm Monitor. We'll see you next week.